Ladies and fictional men, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and if you're new, hi, I'm Kit. Today's video is going to be my 6-star reads. So these are for books that are like my top tier, god tier. These are books that are my ride or die, books I would die for, or if my memory was wiped, or if I somehow lost my memory, these are for books that I would go back to and read again just so then I could get the same feeling as I did when I first read it. The first two books, actually, before I go into the books, for me, the difference between a 6-star read and a favourite read is a favourite read is a book I loved, whereas a 6-star read is a book I loved that has stuck with me, and if someone asked me for a book recommendation, this would be the book I would recommend, or these are the books, because there's more than one. So, the first two books are actually, they're not necessarily for oldest publication-wise, but they are the ones I've had on my shelf for the longest. And I'm just going to get started. So this is The Sight by David Clement Davies. I've been obsessed with this for over 10 years. Because I remember in year 6, we had to pick a book, and then we were playing charades, and I picked this one. And I knew no one would get it, so I told my best friend at the time what it was, so then one person would get it. So this is The Sight by David Clement Davies. This follows a wolf called Larka from her birth to her adulthood, as she, when she is a child, discovers she has a power called The Sight, which, from my memory, kind of gives her more than one ability, but one of them is seeing with the eyes of animals. I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to spoil this book, but essentially follows her as she discovers she has the power, and then she has to, so the power is called The Sight, and it follows her as she has to not only save her pack, but the whole world from another wolf who has the same ability, but is using it in a not good way. Also, morning, you'll need tissues, because the end makes me cry. I mean, you could tell this book is well loved, because it has a cracked spine. And then the next book is The Curious Incident of a Dog in the Nighttime, which, hold on, is actually one of my tattoos I have. It's cold. So if I take my jumper off, see? Teehee. It's one of my tattoos, so I have one, which is my sword, and then I have this book. So this book follows Christopher, who has Asperger's, which is a form of autism, but nowadays Asperger's isn't a thing. Because it's also coincidentally what I have. So this book opens up to Christopher kneeling over his neighbour's dog's body, called Wellington, who has a pitchfork stabbed into him, and it follows Christopher as he decides to solve the case of who killed Wellington. And it's just, it doesn't make me cry, but it's very emotional because of the fact that he's autistic, so his brain doesn't work the same way as society. So he obviously struggles, and as someone who is autistic and was only diagnosed this year before my birthday, I can literally, it was January the 31st. This book, just now talking about it as someone who's also autistic, just makes me really emotional. Yeah. Now, this one. Did I deliberately pick a different book addition to my last video because I spoke about, I think my top 10, my 10 before the end, and that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, because I have 4 editions, so I have options. So I'm gonna very briefly go over this. So I'm quite fussy when it comes to classics, so I've read a bunch. I've read Phantom of the Opera, didn't like it. Dracula, didn't like it. I've read Little Women, weren't that keen on it. Wuthering Heights, Watership Down, Rebecca, a lot of them I didn't like. However, Frankenstein, I just fell in love with the prose, and the way Mary Shelley has written it, and I just think the writing is extremely beautiful, and the argument of man versus nature, and essentially man's greed, but not necessarily for money, for power, and it's just so good. So this book is technically split into two. It follows, well actually that's a lie, it's split into three. So it starts with a captain of a ship who is travelling to, I believe, the North Pole, and he's writing letters, and then he encounters Victor Frankenstein, and then the book splits into its second part, which follows Victor Frankenstein as he tells the tale of him creating the creature who has no name. And it really annoys me when people call the monster or the creature Frankenstein when he's not called Frankenstein, because he doesn't have a name. Because that's how much Victor Frankenstein did not care for his monster. All he cared about was creating life, and then once that life was created, he didn't know what to do. And yeah. And then the third part is the monster's point of view, which you just get very emotional, and you feel so sorry for the creature because he didn't ask to be born, and then he was basically thrown out, tossed to the dirt, and then he's had to teach himself and learn how to live and how to talk through the eyes of other people, but without them seeing him, because he knows that if someone sees him, they will scream and run away or try to kill him. As you can tell, I love this book. If you enjoyed this book, I personally think you should watch the new 2025 film called Frankenstein by Guillermo del Toro. If I mispronounced that, I do apologise. It has Jacob Elordi as the creature, and then it has Oscar Isaac as Victor, and then it has Mia Goth as Elizabeth. The only difference from the book to that film is, in the book, Elizabeth was Victor's cousin / adoptive sister, because she was an orphan, and then in another version, not cousin, essentially adopted sister, whereas in the film, she has no relation to Victor, and instead is just the fiance of his little brother William. And yeah, it's so good. I think you should watch the film, as long as you are okay with horror and blood. Also, if you are one of those people that think the creature is a hear me out, stay tuned on this channel. Also, I might make a whole video going into full detail of my thoughts of the film because of my love of Frankenstein, the book. I think it's incredibly smart of them to use Jacob Elordi, who was 6'5", as the creature, because he does tower over Oscar Isaac. The next book is Nightmare of Neverland by Todd C. Farron. So going into this book, I was actually really nervous, because if you know me, you know one of the films I love, and like if I'm ill or sad, I will go back and I will watch the 2003 version of Peter Pan. He was, as far as my memory goes back, my first ever fictional crush, and now I just like guys with messy and curly hair, which I find that has so tee. Boyfriend, if you're watching this, turn it off. But yeah, anyway, going into this book, I was worried. However, it blew my expectations out of the park. So this is essentially a horror, I would argue, a horror version of the original tale by J.M. Barrie. So instead of Peter Pan being the good guy, he's actually the antagonist, and Captain Hook is the protagonist and the good guy. So this book follows, is it James? I couldn't remember what his first name, because sometimes, once upon a time, he's called Killian, and in other iterations, he's called James. In this, Captain Hook is called James, and he's going to call him Hook. So it follows him as he gets visited by a immortal creature like vampire, aka Peter, who essentially cuts off his hand, and so he becomes Captain Hook, and also kidnaps his brother. And in this book follows Captain Hook as he not only hunts down the immortal creature, but also tries to save his brother. I'm not going to tell you whether or not he succeeds, but it's amazing. If you like classic stories turned horror or dark, I recommend this one. Also, I don't know if it's out yet. I also do want to watch it. The company that made Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, because Winnie the Pooh became part of the public domain, they are making a horror version of Peter Pan, which I do want to watch. And I also do want to watch Blood and Honey, even though I know the reviews aren't that great. Last book, this is the edition. Sorry about that. This is actually the edition I showed in my previous video, I believe. So this is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. So this is a YA, which means young adult mystery, and it's a trilogy. So first one is my favourite one because it kind of sets it up. So it's Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Good Girl But Blood, and then As Good as Dead. Do I also do a video where I reread these? I don't know. So the series, specifically this one, follows 16-year-old Pippa Fitz-Amory, who picks the cold case of Andy Bell for her EPQ, which essentially is final major project, and sets out to solve the case because she personally thinks the original person who was, I don't want to say convicted because he dies before he is convicted, and I'm trying to explain it in a least spoilery way, called Sal Singh, and she doesn't think Sal did it. And in solving this mystery, she meets Ravi, who is Sal's younger brother, and there is a slight romance plot, actually not even a plot. Ravi and Pip do become close, become friends, and then become partners. But yeah, it's so good, and the ending of this trilogy is... But yeah, so good. If, like I said, it's a YA mystery, and if you like YA mysteries, I totally recommend A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Or if you are a young person who wants to get into mystery, I recommend this series. And then after you watch the series, you can watch the show, which is on BBC iPlayer if you live in the UK. And then I think it's also on Netflix in the UK. However, I watched it on BBC iPlayer the day it came out. Or if you don't live in the UK, it's on Netflix anyway. And it's starring Emma Myers, who plays in it in Wednesday. Yeah, anyway, if you like YA mysteries, perfect trilogy for you. So I have many favourite books, and having to go through them, I had to go on to my Fable, because otherwise I would have just picked Co-Assistant of the Dog of the Nighttime and Forsyth if I didn't. So I went through my Fable and picked out these, and having to narrow it down was so difficult. However, I managed to do it, and I think I picked a good set. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you've seen this far, comment a knife emoji, and if there's not a knife emoji because I use like 2 emojis, comment for blood drop. I believe that's an emoji, or for red heart. Comment one of those 3, so knife, blood drop, or a heart. And don't forget to comment down below what videos you want me to do, questions, and then I'll happily do a Q&A video. Also give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I shall see you in my next one.